Hi, and welcome to the Data Strategy Gurus podcast. Today we have Yali Sassoon from Snowplow with us. Snowplow, maybe not so many people know about Snowplow, but they're kind of the competitor of Google Analytics. They allow you to get on top of your first party data. So hi and welcome, Yali. Maybe for the people that don't know you, you can give a bit of background who you are and why you stepped in this marvelous world of data and analytics.
Thanks so much, Yves, and thank you for having me on the show. So, as you said, my name is Yali. I have worked with data all my career, which is 20 years now. So I started life. I started my career very focused on data. I studied science and history and philosophy of science at university, and I was very interested in how people use numbers to reason and how impactful that had been in sort of growing the body of human knowledge across a range of different disciplines. I was very interested to see how that was applied in a commercial context when I left university. So I worked as a consultant in different consulting houses. I did some strategy consulting, some operational consulting, and always with a focus on data and how organizations were using data. And very early on in my career, I worked with a client in the wind turbine space and saw how some analysis that I did, some pretty straightforward analysis that I did in Excel, really changed the way that the organization thought about how they were actually manufacturing the turbines, and it led to a lot of business process change. And it, as a sort of young person, that was a very impactful moment for me, realizing the power that numbers had to persuade people to fundamentally change the way they do business. And so after that, I kind of had the bug, and I've been working with data all the rest of my life. Sort of 10, 11 years ago, I was working with my co-founder, Alex, and we got very excited about behavioral data. So at that time, if you think back that long, it was just at the point that the iPhone 3 had come out. There's this incredible explosion of the app ecosystem and people being really innovative, coming up with these new applications to help us bring digital to different parts of our lives. You know, how we date, how we collaborate with work colleagues, how we play games, how we consume media. And as a data person, that was very exciting because I realized as soon as you have a digital platform involved, you have the ability to collect very, very granular data describing how people are doing all these different things. And you can collect that across enormous numbers of users. You can get very, very large data sets, but also very deep data sets. Data describes exactly how this person is engaging in this platform. And that was incredibly exciting. And that was sort of the trigger for creating Snowplow in 2012.
Yeah, marvelous introduction. I hear you've been working already in a data-driven organization when you were building the turbines, operational environments. That's my same feeling. I mean, I have a background in chemistry and I've been working in operational environments. And the tech guy, I was already been working with Commodore 64 and FoxPro and databases. I've took all the plannings as well, put them together, and I was able to predict in 15 minutes, okay, this is where it's going, because we didn't have an integrated IT planning. The IT guys, unfortunately, weren't so smart and quick and didn't understand the business, which I still see this is important to become data-driven, understand your business, what do you want to know. So that led you to looking into behavioral data when you looked at the iPhone 3, and that put together, all that experience from you, put that together to build Snowplow, to get really deep understanding of the platform, of people, what they do, their digital footprint, if I understand. So what were the biggest challenges that you saw that people were trying to overcome to get these analysis, to get the understanding of what people do online, what drives them to make a sales or acquire something?
So the challenges have shifted a lot. If I go back to 2012 when we started Snowplow, the challenge was, and we built Snowplow for ourselves. We didn't realize that lots of other people would want to use the technology. So we were consultants. We were working with customers, and the first thing we do is understand the universe of data that they had. And a lot of these businesses, digital was a big part of their service delivery. And that data that described those digital journeys lived in an island. It lived in things like Google Analytics and so on. It wasn't possible to take that data and drill down to an individual user level and then join that data with the other customer level data that they had in their CRM systems and their ERP systems and so on. And that felt like a huge missed opportunity. Both Alex, my co-founder, and I would work with retailers through the kind of customer loyalty revolution. So we'd seen how having the data about what people buy enabled supermarkets and other organizations to much more deeply understand their customers and target them with much more compelling offers and better experiences. But they couldn't see, for example, that a customer had tried to buy, a particular product and hadn't for some reason, and that felt like a missed opportunity. Why hadn't they bought this product? Was it mispriced? Was it misdescribed? Was there something else got in their way, maybe in the user experience, that meant they didn't buy it? Maybe it was out of stock, and that's why they didn't buy it. These very, very simple questions we couldn't help our customers answer with the tools. And more fundamentally, when you've from an operational and strategic data perspective, we were very used to starting every analysis by asking a question. You have a question and you look at, well, what data can I bring to answer this question? And when I came late into what was then called web analytics and digital analytics, and there it was the other way around. People would log into, say, Google Analytics, and it would give them all the graphs. They'd pick the graph and use that to almost retrofit a question. And that felt all back to front. So the idea with Snowplow was, let's decouple the data collection from the UI, which is very narrow and doesn't answer any of the questions that we wanted to answer for our businesses. Mm-hmm. Let's focus on getting our customers the best possible data. And then there'll be people there who are asking lots of questions, and they've got the data that they can bring to bear to answer those questions. So we wanted to flip the model on its head and enable people to approach data in the digital domain with the same flexibility that they've enjoyed in every other domain, but in digital, where they hadn't had that flexibility because historically the data was too voluminous, and it was only in 2012 that the big data thing really took off, and actually it started to become practical to work with these enormous volumes of data the same way you work with much smaller data sets.
Yeah, fully understand what you're referring to. So if I understand, what Snowplow now allows you to do is connect to more than just your web analytics and take that on a very detailed level, that information about your customers, and then drive the insights based upon all these connections. Because that very often is a big challenge, trying to understand your customer and identifying them if they're using your application or your platform from a web device or from a mobile device, and keep on tracing that is the same exact visitor. That's a big challenge in just the digital online platforms. If you want to trace if somebody buys something, has that been triggered by, for example, a Facebook advertisement, or was that you thanks to a Google advertisement? But combining that to see where your budget spent should be optimized and gets the best effect. This is what you can do with Snowplow. Just compared to only Google Analytics, you can do that in your Google AdSense and connect them together as well, but not as deep as I understand that you can do with Snowplow.
So the environment has shifted quite a lot. So in 2012, you couldn't drill down to the customer level data with Google Analytics. You can today. So today, there are a number of solutions that are similar to Snowplow in that they will enable you to publish to a data warehouse, something like a BigQuery, a Snowflake, a Databricks, a detailed record of what all your users are doing on web, on mobile, and on other platforms. Where we are different is we're very focused on delivering the best possible data into the data warehouse to enable our customers to get analysis and insight and activation. So if you think you often want to use this data not just to tell you something about the customer, but actually to trigger some real-time offer or to personalize an experience for them based on what you're learning about them in real time. And that's what we're very focused on. So with Google, you can deliver all this data into, or a similar data set into the data warehouse than with Snowplow. But with today, and that's more recent functionality in Google Analytics that came since we started. But the data actually looks quite different, and working with the data is very, very different to working with Snowplow data. So with Snowplow data, we want the data to be very, very rich, so you can understand everything about a user's interaction. So if a user is looking, for example, at a shopping site, you want to know what web page the user's on, but what product they're viewing. You want to know if there's a particular promotion on the product. You want them to know which photos are above and below the fold. You want to know how many seconds they've spent on the site. You want to know whether they're consuming the review content or not. So that level of granularity is something that's hard to represent in alternative solutions like Google Analytics. And then structuring that data so that it's very, very granular, but very, very easy to work with is something else that's really important to us. So typically it's not uncommon for, with every single event that we record, to record two to 300 different properties that are organized in well-structured entities. So we can understand everything about the user, the page, the product, the promotion, and so on. And then present that in a way, and then to track more events per user. So time is a very important thing to understand, and we'll fire a heartbeat so we can understand exactly how active a user is. And if they go to another tab and they come back, we can sort of trace that journey and understand if they're searching on a travel site for different flights, and they've got those different flights and different tabs. We can see them moving between them and understand how they're making those decisions. We then take that underlying data and aggregate it up to make it easy for our customers to take that data and drive insight on them. So they can take their business intelligence tools or their AI tools or their product analytics tools and put them directly on top of the data. And there's recently a GigaOM report sort of comparing the types of questions that an online retailer would want to answer using data that had been generated with Snowplow with data generated by Google Analytics. And they found it was much, much faster and more cost effective to answer those questions with Snowplow data, because every decision we've made has been optimized around delivering the data in a way that's best for the person that's using the data to drive that insight.
So if I understand, is that you're not only recording the actions, what somebody is doing on a platform, but the context around it as well, that allows you to very likely do less A/B testing and get these insights, and then very quickly know how you should optimize your landing page, what you should offer, and all those kind of things, instead of enormous number of A/B testings and then verifying and analyzing the A/B tests what you get. Is that kind of right? How I understand?
So you're absolutely right that we'll capture many, many more contexts. Actually, I don't know that it necessarily means fewer A/B tests, but it does mean that you have a lot more data to feed. So especially if you're using this data to feed personalization or any kind of AI, you can engineer far more features and you can optimize far more about the user experience. And really the goal is to understand the decisions that a customer is making and what influences those decisions. And often that contextual information is key. And the sort of the funny example is weather, which is something most people miss, but actually people behave totally different if it's raining, if it's sunny, especially if they're on a mobile device and they're out and about. So really making the platform flexible to pull in as much of this contextual information as possible is really important.
Yeah, so I understood why you built Snowplow, what intrigued you, but what keeps you moving? Because this is a fast-paced environment where developments, especially now with AI and generative AI, that you see the developments are skyrocketing at a speed we almost can't follow. What keeps you going and in this really challenging and exciting space?
So all the developments keep me going, Yves. It's working in data is such a privilege because it's it's the environment is always changing. So it's a mix of things. One thing that's been kind of constant is a lot of organizations struggle, even if they have all the tech, to get to actual value. And I think this is a challenge as old as data itself. And so we're doing a lot to try and help to build new technology to make it easier for our customers to get to value. So for years, we were focused on our behavioral data platform, which delivered the data to the data warehouse in this format and optimized the format for end users. But now we're building actual applications that sit on top of that data and will can be used directly by an end user who might be more used to a tool like Google Analytics. Will actually give them the answers straight away. So we always want the flexibility the user can go to the data to ask their own questions. Mm-hmm. But now we know there are a bunch of users that have a set of standard questions, and let's take that work away so that we can just present those answers over the top. And we're working to build many more applications that sit on top of the data. So really looking at the journey that particularly a marketing team would go through from using this data to optimize the ads and the content and the journeys that they're delivering to their prospects, and help them do that more effectively within each channel, then start to understand the journey across different channels and across different campaigns and how campaigns work together and optimize that, and then start to really drill down and understand, who each of these users are, what are their overall preferences, but where are they in the buying cycle right now? And if you can start using the data to segment the audience, then you can really start to personalize the experience in a way that's meaningful for those customers. And so if we can build tech to help our customers do that faster, that's one thing that really motivates me. The other part of it is I'm very inspired by what especially our more data sophisticated customers end up building on top of the data. So if we're building data applications to help the majority of customers get to value faster, we're also looking at what our more cutting edge customers are building for themselves and thinking, well, how can we build better tools for these end users so that they can build these data products and these data applications on top of our technology. And there we're getting an opportunity to incorporate ideas around things like data contracts and data products and data mesh, and make the products so that it supports businesses that are adopting some of these new and I think very exciting paradigms in data. So making it easier it's not uncommon for a business using Snowplow to have maybe 10 or 15 or sometimes 100 different teams that are actually creating data from different parts, from different products and different applications across their portfolio, and publish that data in a way that makes it easier for then the 10, 20, 100, 200 different data consuming teams to understand, hey, I know what this data is and what it means and who created it. I can use this data to go and build a data product or a data application and help those people work together more effectively to build these data supply chains and build data applications that support more of the customer experience.
Yeah, so I hear you talking about data. I call it data scenarios, where you look at how which type of questions that consumers ask, package that in a standard way, then have that offered to people in marketing, because this is a standard package, very likely insights that you want to know. I hear you talking about your partners as well, or your clients. You call them clients, but very likely you have a partner ecosystem where you look into how they build these, and you do it back and forth on building some data products. You mentioned as well data mesh, where I'm intrigued on what is your view on where that is going, because we have so many definitions about what is really a data mesh and a data fabric, where that is going. You build a marvelous platform with Snowplow on enabling all these possibilities. Where do you see that these type of concepts are going, data products, and where so many teams are building products, but still staying on top of it and understanding what other teams have built and how can that bring value to whatever you're doing and connecting these data products. How do you see the evolvement in that direction, and maybe connect that to how Snowplow is developing in the next few years, and your vision map and roadmap for Snowplow, taking into account where the adoption of data products is going?
A great question, Eve. I'll try and answer all of it, but keep me honest if I miss parts of it. So, um, two things I believe are having a really big impact in the way companies organize around data contracts and data products. So, if I think back to 2012, most of the challenges that businesses had working with behavioral data were technical challenges. This data was high volume, high velocity. There's lots of complexity with web data. There's lots of complexity with mobile data, smart TV. All these different channels have a whole host of peculiarities, let's say, that you've got to get familiar with to use the data effectively. But today, actually, most organizations, I think, are held back by organizational challenges. So they've got lots of different teams that are creating data, lots of different teams that are consuming data, often a lack of visibility around who's doing what with what data. It creates a whole host of governance challenges, a lack of clarity around who's responsible for what. You might end up with a data team in the middle that are responsible for pulling together all the data from all the different data creators and making that available to all the different teams that want to consume the data. And they often will act as a bottleneck. And so I think data contract, data product, data mesh have all, as some of the ideas that have emerged as people start thinking about how we can organize around data better. And I think the least controversial is the idea of treating data as a product. So people have talked about data as an asset, data as oil, but actually I don't think that's a great or very helpful metaphor. I think the more useful thing is data as a product. It's got customers. There are different people in the business that are going to use this data. And if we understand the needs of those customers and give the data a kind of treat the data as a product, so it's a data product, and it's we're not just shipping data, but we're shipping it with documentation and tooling so that we're meeting the needs of our customers. That's a very helpful frame to think about the data. And so actually dividing data up with specific owners who are responsible for understanding those customers and publishing a roadmap and so on, I think that's a very powerful idea. And if it's done well, it'll help more people in the business consume the data, build data applications, and adopt data-driven thinking and embed intelligence into different parts of the customer experience. So we're taking data products and we're making that a first-class citizen in our product in Snowplow. So two different people can log in, and one of them says, I want to create a data product that describes customer behavior in this product, and another one can come and say, I'm going to create a data product that describes customer behavior in this part of our product. And they can both publish that, they can understand what one another have done, how the data looks, the rules, and they've got all the information that they need to consume one another's data. And then the rest of the business can come and see that, can see what's been published and see who owns it and see that it's of a relevant quality and see what it means and so on. And they can go and self-serve on that data. So I think that's a very powerful concept. And very closely related to that is the idea of a data contract. And it's related but different. But the idea that the person who's publishing the data product says, hey, this is a specification for the data product. And if the data doesn't meet this specification, actually the data's going to fail, or I'm going to provide the customers with these assurance around that. And that means that the different people that are consuming the data can make assumptions and start using that data productively, and in the expectation that if anything goes wrong, they're going to be proactively alerted and can take relevant actions. And that's a very nice model, because I think it pushes clarity of ownership to the people that are actually creating the data, who have the power really to make sure that the data is what it should be versus what you have in most businesses today, which is a graph doesn't look right, and there's a mad scramble to figure out why and who's responsible, and chances are the person responsible doesn't even realize she or he is responsible, and there was some other change that was made that inadvertently had this effect on the data, but it was all opaque and there was no clarity, there was no transparency, and that's why those data quality issues are so common. So I'm a big believer in data products and data contracts. I think data mesh is great, but I think bluntly that I think it's not a model that many organizations today can adopt. I think it requires a level of discipline and a level of expertise distributed across the organization that many organizations today lack. So I think they're gaps. And data fabric, honestly, I understand a bit less. I've read the Gartner stuff on it and the idea of active metadata management, but I've got to confess I find it a bit confusing. I think that Zermatt and others who've talked about data mesh have done a really great job of defining that. I don't think the data fabric side has been nearly as precisely defined, so I don't feel qualified to comment there.
No, but I find it nice that you split it up on there is a technical solution which dates back from where big data became on and we had large volumes and high velocity. That's a part. And now where you need to have that in a business related way controlled. I was thinking back on how software engineering evolved over the last 25 years. And unfortunately, we stumble still a lot of the times into a lot of applications without any documentation, without clear ownership, without any understanding of why decisions have been made into an application. Typically, when you took over some code base, you say, how the hell has this been built? And this is typically because your thinking mindset is different than the other one who programmed the code previously. So there is always a reason why you do things, and having that available in either software engineers or software engineering applications and data products, that's the most intriguing part. I see data catalogs coming up as a solution for what you call on building the data products and establishing governance as well. But what do you see on the tools that facilitate that in an easier way than a disparate environment of tools? Like you have Confluence where you can document all your stuff. You have GitHub where you can put on your codes and versions and document that in a way. You have a data catalog, you have metadata, but still, for my feeling, there is no tool that combines it in such a way. What I see where it's going is with large language models that go over all of that and give you the insights in a certain way where you can ask that question, why has this code been written in this way, for which purpose? And in a certain way, very likely it will be able to answer that if you train the model in the right way. But do you see any tools that already facilitate that in a very good way? Short answer, short question.
Hard to answer that question. That question quickly. So I think you're absolutely right to democratize data successfully, to help lots of different people in an organization use the data. Data catalog is incredibly valuable. It's as a sort of source of truth that people can go to learn those things. And the challenge is how do you populate the data catalog? And there are different approaches. We know that manually populating it, having somebody come after the fact and explain the history and what was done and what's there, doesn't work. It works for a little bit, but as soon as there's any inaccuracy, as soon as anything's up to date, people stop reading it, and then the incentive to keep it up to date disappears. So manual curation doesn't work. Social curation is a bit better, but still suffers the same problems. You divide the work up between the different people, maybe the different data owners, so each of them are documenting their own data, but it's still an extra step that they may or may not be willing to take. So then, can an AI go and document this stuff? And it sounds like you're quite optimistic about large language models doing that. I'm a little bit more. I'm very excited about large language models. I don't know that they're the. I haven't seen them used in a compelling way to describe what data's there in the level of details that a data consumer would need to start being productive with that data in the first place. And so what we think at Snowplow is the key is to make the documentation created as part of the data creation process. So before you've even created any data, before you've even manufactured any data, you say, hey, I'm going to create a data product that's going to describe this. And we build the tooling to document that. And we're not asking the user to document something that already exists. We're asking to document the thing that they're about to create. And then we use that documentation to automate as much of the data generation process as possible. So our customers, the data product managers or the data analysts who are creating this data, they're documenting it because it eases their workflow. And then that's used to auto-generate the guides for the developers who then need to take the SDKs and integrate them in the right way. So you use that to facilitate the actual development process and take friction out of that. And then you publish a different version of that into the data catalog for data consumers. So they know, hey, this table of data over here has these events, and this is what they mean, and these are the rules for when they're fired. And so you create some extra work because you're forcing people to create the documentation before any data flows, but you're saving them work in terms of you're easing them the process of creating the data. And the documentation is always up to date because the process for changing the data is tied to the process of defining it, which is the first thing that you're doing. And so we're very optimistic that this approach will mean much clearer machine and human readable documentation, and fundamentally data that's much, much easier to work with and build data applications on top of.
Yeah, I'm smiling because the optimistic part, I've seen that defining what you want, the business requirements before you build the product, and the problem was always you define it, but you don't know what you want to see. Mostly it is you show the result and then you say, oh, this is missing, and I didn't think about this, and I didn't think about that. So having that way of quickly iterating and automating the production of your data product, I think that will help, and people will understand if I don't specify it correctly. It's like with the large language models. If your prompt is not exact enough, you don't get the result what you're expecting. And you see that so many times. And I see there is something really interesting to evolve that people will understand. If I don't formulate my question in the right way, I'm not getting what I expected it to be. And before it was blaming on the business analyst that didn't understand the business or the report developer or whatever. So that's going to be still a human aspect and the change management, what we need to implement to get that right. But yeah, it's interesting to hear that you say we're looking as much as possible to do the generation of all the pipelines in an automatic way and tying that back to the documentation. So it stays in sync instead of still I need to write the documentations or we implemented a new rule. Oh, the developer didn't tell me, so I didn't include it in the documentation. So that's interesting to see where that is going. But just as a bit a rapid fire around, can you tell me what is your favorite data visualization tool?
Oh, my favorite data visualization tool at the moment, I really recommend everybody go and check this out, is count.co. What the creators have done is something very interesting. So they've combined a kind of a canvas. So I don't know if you've used Miro, but you can paste different Post-it notes and things with the idea of an analytics tool. So you can write a query, create a graph, drop it in a canvas, and different people can come and ask questions. And then you can drop another graph in and you can do kind of exploratory analysis in a collaborative way with different people in an organization. So the reason I'm very excited about it is I don't think they're great tools for helping people collaborate around data. And I think that's where an enormous amount of the value is actually created. And a lot of analysis isn't dimensional. So you think about a notebook and you're working down a stream. Actually, you end up with 3-4 hypotheses. I want to test this. I want to test this. I want to test this. And being able to represent that on a canvas I think is powerful.
Yeah,
sorry, that wasn't rapid. I'll try and be quicker.
But it's no, I think that's the creative part. And if you're doing analysis, you're going into an analytic mindset, which blocks a kind of, you stay within a box, and that blocks a bit the creativity. And if you say you can put it on a dashboard and people see that and you can respond to that, that triggers really people engaging around building some data insights. So that's one I'm going to look up. So if you're talking to somebody that is just entering into the space of data analytics, is there a certain book or resource that you say, go there, this is going to be very helpful? I know there is so much around, but
there's so many good good books and material. I mean, a book that I read recently that I really liked was Andrew Jones's book on data contracts to drive data quality. I think data management is a really interesting profession, and what's happening with data management is we need, as you said, to get much more iterative in the way we manage our data, because we're constantly realizing that no, this data is missing something and going back and changing it. And that data product and data contract thinking is really powerful. The reason I particularly like Andrew's book is it's very clear and easy to follow. A lot of the material on data mesh, data fabric is really quite heavy and quite theoretical. And this is super straightforward, clear, very practical to follow. So it's a book that anybody can pick up and start implementing the techniques in their organization.
Yeah, wonderful for the next holidays, if I understand. So if you could have dinner with any data scientist or tech leader, who would that be?
So I would love to have dinner with Satoshi Nakamoto, the Bitcoin creator. I just not really a guy in data, but I think the innovation he or she came up with is sort of extraordinary. We kind of take it for granted now. Sort of cryptocurrencies are sort of all over the place, but actually the problem he solves in his paper is a really, really hard problem to solve, and he solves it very quickly and very, very elegantly, and it's led to the whole crypto and Web3 thing, which I know is going through a bumpy ride at the moment, but it's fundamentally a groundbreaking technology. So yeah, I've got lots of questions that I'd like to ask, given the chance.
Let's get that arranged. Yali, it was a really enlightening conversation. To wrap up, data connects us all, but music connects us all as well. So what is your favorite type of music or your favorite band?
I'm going to show my age here, but I have got a soft spot for hip hop of the 90s and noughties. Hip hop and R&B.
Yali, it was really nice talking to you. Thanks for the complete introduction to Snowplow. Thanks for your time on the podcast.
Thank you so much, Yves. It's been an absolute pleasure.